Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. It's the first time the Another View Roundtable has come together in 2023. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. How do you wrap your head around a 6-year-old shooting his teacher? Will Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, effectively lead the 118th Congress? And do you care? And another one bites the dust. Another city manager is out in Portsmouth. What does that mean for this Hampton Roads city? Great conversation with the Another View Roundtable is coming your way right after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Before we get started with our show today, I always love to tell you about things happening in the community. And this weekend is the commemoration of Dr. Martin Luther King. And there are 2 events I want to tell you about. Over in Newport News, Andrew Shannon Feeding 5,000. They're going to be giving away free meals through a drive-through and walk-up. This is going to be Sunday, January 15th from 1:30 to 3 o'clock p.m. while supplies last at the New Beach Grove Baptist Church, which is on Beachmont Drive in Newport News. And there are a bunch of people that came together in order to make this happen. It is free. It is open to everyone. So if you're looking for a free meal, and I will tell you that Chickasee, which I've heard a lot about in Newport News, is catering this. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So if you want a free meal, 1:30 until 3 p.m. at New Beach Grove Baptist Church, Beachmont Drive in Newport News. And then that evening, also on Sunday the 15th, the Virginia Symphony Orchestra presents the annual concert honoring visionary civil rights leader Martin Luther King. The event is at 7 p.m. at Calvary Revival Church, which is on Poplar Hall Drive in Norfolk. This concert is free and open to the public. It features principal guest conductor Thomas Wilkins, the Mount Unity Choir, the Mandla Quartet, and soloists, including electric bassist Victor Wooten. This is going to be an incredible concert, and as a matter of fact, I will be there, so I hope to see you in the place. Again, it is going to be at Calvary Revival Church, 5833 Poplar Hall Drive in Norfolk, starting at 7 p.m. It is free. It's open to everyone, and it is always a great event. If you want to know more, you can go to virginiasymphony.org or call 757-892-6366. So it is 2023. The sisterhood is in the house. Hey. So let's meet our roundtable pundits. She's our resident people person. She specializes in human dynamics and interactions. Dr. Alvean Lyons. Hey. Happy New Year to you, dear.
Happy New Year, guys. I'm so glad to be with my sisters. This is so wonderful.
Absolutely. She's all about collecting the money and keeping the city of Norfolk fiscally sound. Daun Hester is the treasurer for the city of Norfolk. Hey, Daun.
Hey, hello, everybody.
Happy New Year to you. She has committed her life to influencing and guiding the lives of young college folks. Carol Pretlow is a professor of political science at Norfolk State University. Happy New Year, Carol.
Happy New Year to everybody.
So glad you're here. And she's known as the ultimate connector. Anything community, Gaylene Kanoyton is the go-to person. She's a political consultant and president of the Hampton NAACP, among many other titles. Hey, Gaylene, how you doing?
Hey, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year to you. So while we are really happy to see each other, we're going to start with a topic that I know took my breath away, between shock, disbelief, and then incredibly profound sadness at hearing about the 6-year-old shooting his teacher in Newport News last week. So before we get into the intricacies of it, I just want to get, and I'll start with you, Carol, just your immediate reaction when you heard.
I was shocked. And I rarely cry about anything, but I cried because I wondered, and I'm not a parent, so I shouldn't judge, what was going on at home. My dad was a hunter. He had lots of guns, but they were kept separate and locked. And at 6 years old, I didn't know that I shouldn't have a gun. And I asked him, I said, I want to go hunting too. And he said, not now. And I said, well, just give me a toy to play with. He said, no. When I got older, he explained to me, he said that it's not just about pulling that trigger. It's understanding when and under what circumstances and the effects and results of that. To this day, I hear his words telling me that I was not, even in college, he said, you're not emotionally ready for a gun. So that's what I was wondering about parenting. I'm not a parent, so I shouldn't judge. But I wondered what was happening at home that this child was able to get a gun and put it in his book bag and his parents didn't know.
Yeah, Gaylene?
It was inevitable for it to happen. But a simple fact that one thing with COVID, it peeled back the inequities that we have with social determinants and everything in our community. And it came to a point where people got lax. They stayed at home, during COVID, and we don't have really we don't really have sensible gun laws to where it needs to be. We have legislation that's in place right now that a legislator is trying to get rid of a concealed license, and so everything has been happening towards a mental health, and we have an administration that's trying to change mental health to behavioral health, and I get that. But when I think about behavioral health, I think about locking up our kids, and throwing away the key. And this mental health has been going on for a while in our community and has not really been addressed to the extent where it needs to be.
Okay, Dawn?
I prayed for the teacher because, I'm a former teacher. So I can imagine being in a classroom. I can't imagine that, though. And I prayed for the child. And I prayed that we would put him, her, somewhere where then they can begin to be healed, because clearly something was missing in the child's upbringing. And then I prayed for the classroom and the kids all in the school and the teachers, because now they are all traumatized. And so there's another whole group, 530 some children I think were in this school. And they're all going to have to be helped for a long time, short period of time, depending on where they are and their adjustment. But the same thing for the teachers. And we wonder why we can't get teachers. We're scared. They're scared. They just trying to want to teach, do what they love. Anyway.
And a 6-year-old. I mean, if I've heard a lot of teachers say, I'll do the little ones or I want to do the college ones, but I don't want to do that other.
And I prefer the middle and the high school ones. That's because, because they can talk to you and, tell you really how they feel, and you can see how they feel. But with their head, as we learn more, I'm sure there were things that led up to this baby doing this.
Exactly.
But whatever it was, it should never have led to this. I hope the parents are charged too.
We're going to get to that. Yeah. Alvean.
So I had multiple reactions. One, I knew that my phone was getting ready to ring, because you all know that I spent a lot of my time doing advisory work at law enforcement. So I knew that was coming. Two, as a mom, I was thinking about what my kids were doing at 6 years old, right? You can't help but to think they were watching Barney. What in the world is happening at this point, right? Then three, knowing that there's always layers to these things. We'd like to believe that there are very direct lines. A happened, which created B, which created C. But in the world that we exist in right now, there are so many additional nuances that are at play that I knew that this was going to be complicated. And it is. It's a very complex case because of the age of the child. You know, what it is that we have an appetite for. You know, somebody has to be at fault and somebody has to take the consequences or be responsible for the consequences associated with this. But the juvenile justice system doesn't even take you in until 11.
Exactly. I mean, he was so young, they don't even know what to do with it.
There's not even a system to be able to address this. And so there's a part of you that's just hoping that somehow the investigation would have produced some error, some aberration, some accidental, but that is not the case. It was an intentional shooting. So the being able to digest what that means and the ripple effects associated with it, as all of my sisters have just spoken to, there are so many things that are going to happen as a byproduct of this, that we will be having this conversation nationally on many levels. And I was a school counselor before I owned my corporations. And I remember so many of my educator colleagues specifically saying, to your point, Barbara, I want the babies because it's safer. They wake up with a good attitude. They still believe in the possibility of things. They're not jaded by anything. It was all of the reasons you taught at K through 5. And for the first time, for those of you who might have seen the press conference, the superintendent said, in 50 years, we have only had 3 cases of children single-digit age that it was an intentional shooting. 3 in 50 years. So there's no system in place to address these issues. And every teacher is taught the active shooter drills. But the anticipation is that's coming from the outside, or that would be happening at the middle or high school level. There was no precedent set for what to do when it's an elementary student and it's intentional.
There's an incredible article in the Washington Post. The headline says a 6-year-old is accused of shooting someone at school. He isn't the first.
It's not.
You know, and go ahead, Gaylene.
1970. They have one, and they've had not a lot, but they've had several cases that we know of. Now, we never know what happens within a circuit, anything like that. We never know what happens within that. So, it's, as I said before, I know a little bit more about this case because I know some people around this family. And so I just know that there's a lot of work that we have to be done in our community, period. And as Alvean said, it's on so many levels.
Yep.
And if you peel back, it's easy to say, oh, he's a bad kid, and we need to be put away. He's a bad seed. But you have to look at what was behind it and what led up to it. And I hope that eventually that can be told, what led up to that, because everyone can learn from this.
So should the parent, to your point, Dawn, or the part you brought up, do you think the parent should be held responsible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the facts.
Yeah.
But I know the parents owned the gun. I know the gun didn't have a safety on it.
And it was a 9 millimeter.
I know the child got it. So he or she knew where it was. Yeah, they should be held accountable. I don't know what that accountability is because we don't know the facts.
But the interesting thing about it is that he, I think, had made a comment a couple weeks prior to it that he was going to do something. And he waited all day until 2:00. It just tells you something about this child. And that's why I said the background, the backstory, I hope that eventually will be told.
But it probably won't to the public.
No, it won't.
To the public, exactly, because
It shouldn't be.
Right.
But you're to the point of parental responsibility.
I think that we have to be careful about what we believe should happen where that's concerned. Right. And I say that because we have a tendency to assume that 6 has a brain capacity that is more limited than it actually is. And what I mean by that is to say that the most difficult children to raise are highly intelligent children, most difficult to raise. And that is because they are processing information without moral compass, ethics. There are certain things that they have not developed yet, but they have intelligence. And when you mix that with potentially, and I am not in a position to say this child has a diagnosis or not, but if you are dealing with a situation where you have a child with a diagnosis, and there are those that absolutely have significant ones at young ages, that combining those two things together, even for a good parent, and I'm not here to judge that parent, but even for a good parent, what those little people can get themselves into is extraordinary. And the thoughtfulness that can come with that, even when it's bad, is significant. So for us to assume, and I'm not saying we are, but just for the general public, for us to assume that you don't have a child that is smart enough to watch almost everything you do, where you're putting keys to lock boxes, you think they're not paying attention. There's a reason why 9 times out of 10, if you ask an educator, they will tell you, I know exactly what those parents are like based on how these kids behave in this classroom. Because they are modeling, reproducing what it is that they're seeing at home. They just don't have the abstract thinking to be able to display it the way that we do as adults. So
And we don't have an expectation that they will display that, right?
The way that
an adult would.
That an adult will. But I just caution us only in the sense that we don't know for sure how the child got to the gun, whether or not it was in fact locked appropriately, because the thoughtfulness that it took, to Gaylene's point, to conceal that weapon, hold it all day, wait for a moment in instruction to be able to shoot and to meet center mass, there is a level of intelligence that requires. So I just want us to be careful about what we think a parent didn't do at home in order for that to have taken place.
And one thing I just want to go ahead.
Hang on, let's get Carolyn.
But, as I hear all of this, it's almost like we go over and over and over. So what I want to know is, what are legislators going to do about this? Because, again, we say, well, the laws need to be changed, and nothing does change. So we need to hold our elected representatives they need to step up to the plate and pass some legislation. Now, Governor, I'm sorry.
But pass legislation.
Well, how would that help
in this
though?
situation? Yeah.
Well,
Because it was a legally obtained gun.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what the point is, that if legislation is passed to clarify and make more strict gun control and gun possession laws, then maybe that will have an effect. Because I don't even believe all adults should have guns. And I don't believe, I think that it might start with legislation being passed about gun control and about the possession of guns from the individual standpoint. Now, I know that
your point being that you would advocate for more restrictions on who can own a gun. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Daun, I saw you were. We were talking about the parents.
Processing.
Yeah, gotcha.
As a parent, yes, you do think you know your children.
Oh, okay.
As a teacher, you believe you know your students. I don't know how long this student has been in this classroom, but we are trained as teachers, maybe not necessarily as parents, to spot certain things. And so if there were things that led up to this that are not public information, and I would say as a teacher, I'm sure there was something that led up to it, that it wasn't just a one-day thing, I'm going to come in here and do this. Because of children, if you know children, and my specialty was emotional disorders. So that is the type of child that I worked with. And there are a lot of children that have emotional issues, but they weren't in a special classroom. But you pay attention to those things. And so I'm still going to say that I think that there should be some accountability on the parents' part,
yeah.
no matter what. No matter what.
I'm going to read something to you guys. Ryan Murphy, who is a reporter here at WHRO News, received an email from a gentleman. And I'm just going to read part of it. He says, good Ryan, exclamation point. Good libturd, he called him. He said, don't you dare mention the race of the little N-word boy who shot the white teacher. Oh no, there would be very inconsistent with NPR narrative. Can't be mentioning the facts that are contrary to the agenda now. Now, not that you'd suppress declaring repeatedly if it were a white kid shooting a black teacher. We don't know the race of the child. We don't, because it hasn't been said. Mm-hmm. So your reaction to, because this person is not the first person who feels this way and who has said things. So, why do we bring race into a situation when it's bad enough
Yes, it is.
that it is a child, a 6-year-old who has shot a teacher, and then we want to turn around and make it a racial issue?
Because for people who do that, everything is a racial issue for them, right? Because if you're saying little N-word, you're already talking about someone who has very clear positions on what they think about people of color, period. So they are looking for stories that help to affirm their narrative that we are animals. And anything that feeds that narrative, that justifies your willingness to look at another person created by God just like you, and to see them as less than, is exactly what you're interested in. You're hungry for it. And you want that out there because it helps to make you feel less like a racist. So I want everybody talking about the same thing that I'm talking about, because I hate black people anyway. So when you're dealing with people like this, they are their own breed of humans, and they're not too far off from the shooters either. All we're doing is we're talking about figurative bullets versus literal ones. And when you are writing like that, all you're doing is shooting with figurative bullets. That's it. You are no better than who you're talking about, period.
It's always an interesting dynamic, because if you think back to the DC sniper, remember
and they
how
were shocked
how shocked
that he was black
everybody was,
because of the intelligence that it required.
Exactly.
That's the same reason they don't believe that there should be black quarterbacks, because the most thoughtful position should be a position that is not held by a person of color. It's the same reason why, for some people, made out of that same material, the fact that we had a black president was problematic for them. And if you Googled if you just put in N-word house, there used to be countless things that would pop up, because it was no longer the White House when you have an N that is heading up that house. There are certain elements of our society that will never be worthy of conversation that legitimizes the way that they view other humans, period.
And the sad part about it is, again, this was a child who is 6 years old, who's in crisis, who has created crisis for an entire school, an entire city, an entire community, and this story went national, obviously, because of
international.
What happened.
And I was just going to say, and my thoughts would still be the same. No matter the baby's race.
Absolutely.
He needs help.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
They need prayer.
Exactly.
The parents should be held accountable. These are my thoughts. But, it's no matter what.
But I also want to say this, is that when I said I hope the backstory come out, the only one who could tell that story will be the parents.
family.
Yes.
Will be
And
the
that's
family.
the age of the child.
And that would be a learning experience for all of us. And that's when I go back to talk about social determinants and things that lead up to it. Because in every case, everybody want to always write off people as being bad or somebody being in crisis, and don't understand. And even with this, I don't know all the story behind what the parents and nothing like that, so I want to be clear about that. But I would love to hear, their story.
I hope they get a chance to tell it at some point.
I do too.
Because they traumatized too.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Everybody. There are no winners in this scenario.
Right.
But I will say, for the teacher, Abigail Zwecker, I hope I pronounced that last name correctly.
She's a hero.
The mere fact that in spite holding her chest as she's got a bullet in her chest, she made sure that her students were safe,
Every one
that
of
they
them.
got out. So our prayers are with her. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about current events with the Another View Roundtable. Relationship expert Dr. Alvean Lyons, Norfolk City Treasurer Daun Hester, political science professor Carol Pretlow, and political consultant and president of the Hampton NAACP, Gaylene Kanoyton. Let's switch topics, ladies. 15 votes. Over how many? I was glued to the TV
Wait a
set.
minute. Someone posted on my Facebook that he was one vote away from a free sub from Subway.
I like that.
15 times. Hasn't happened since over and over 100 years. But he got there. He gave away the store. So the question is, can Kevin McCarthy be an effective politician? Can he be an effective leader of the 118th Congress? Or are we going to get Zippos done for the next couple of years?
Well, is the elected in the room?
Yes, ma'am, Miss Elected. That's why I pointed to you.
I never thought he was a good elected because I don't know what kind of legislation he has put forth for the individuals in his district and in our state. And so if you can't talk about, to me, somebody's legislation, because we go there to make a difference in the district we represent, in that state, and in the country. I don't know of any of his legislation that has made a difference in the lives of people. So I don't know what kind of leader he is going to be. I do personally believe that he just wanted the title. And when you just want the title, you're not about anything. You're certainly not about the people you're supposed to serve. And so how can you be an effective leader? Because you're going to do whatever it takes so you can keep the leadership.
Let me ask the political consultant over here.
Wait, let me tell you something. They said that the Freedom Caucus make the Tea Party look like Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. So we're in for a wild ride.
Yes, we are.
Thank God for the Senate.
Yes.
Thank God for the Senate.
Yeah.
The only thing that we have to be concerned about is the rules in the House.
Right.
The rules in the House. I'm not sure anything is going to get done at all. I don't think anything is going to get done because anything major or whatever has to go through the Senate, and the Senate will block it. So I am. It's just going to be a wild ride.
I am concerned about the budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That to me is the most important thing, and whether or not they'll do this shutdown thing. But other than that, because we know we have a stoppage for things that are not in the best benefit of our country, that gives me some hope. But I still would like to see something done over the next 2 years.
And I just want to say this one thing. The unraveling of confusing democracy with hypocrisy. Okay, and when I say that, it's that, okay, now they want to go after go after President Biden, and I get, of course, on these newfound reports or whatever, that's good, but they want to get his son, who's not even here yet.
Right.
I mean, it's gone. His son who's not here, Hunter Biden. It's like a tit for tat thing. When this January 6th insurrection was serious, and it should be considered and held serious, and now they're trying to tit for tat. Now, I'm not talking about the records of being found in somebody's house or whatever. I think they should go back to all the presidents and all the vice presidents and look around their homes. But create a rule, or create a new law or something, a new law or whatever, so that when you leave, everything has to be checked off. I don't know, but anyway, I just think we're going to have a lot of tit for tat.
Carol, as a political science professor.
I just thought as we looked at these 15 different times of voting for this person, did anybody think about, okay, let's talk about his background. What has he done in the past? What is he, what things is he adamant about now? And let's look at his legislative history. I think we're going to
But Carol,
have
don't
this
you think it was too
over
late
and
at that
over
point? Because with the mere fact that he got nominated, I mean, he was
Yeah.
the one that was put forward.
But what I'm saying is, if we didn't do it in the past and he got forward, what is going to happen with other legislation? It's going to go through the same thing over and over and over again. When legislation is up about education and about teachers' salaries and about
That's not even gonna get up there, Carol.
No. Mm-mm.
That's not even
Policing,
gonna not in the house.
Not in the house. But even the budget, if you can't come together on who is going to lead you, how you going to get a budget passed?
So let me ask you this, though. And I haven't forgotten you, Alvean. I'm
No,
going to bring
I'm-
you in this conversation. But Byron Donalds from Florida, this African-American gentleman who has spent a year in Congress, I believe, if it's been that long. And the Republicans used him, my words, to to go up. It was almost like a tip of, when you're talking about tit for tat, almost like, okay, you got Hakeem Jeffries, so we're going to put up Donald, and throw him in the mix. And he seemed to embrace this.
You want to be the rest of
Is it me?
So you're going to go to our behavior specialist.
Political theater
Help me with
is
that.
something that America has become really good bedfellows with. That it doesn't, we've become this nation now that it's not about who we actually are. It's just about what it looks like, right? And the consequence of that is that Americans become the casualties of this. For as long as this is just theatrics and it's just, this is my chess move, this is your chess move, checkmate.
Exactly.
If that's what we're doing, we, the people, are the ones that are going to suffer the consequences by the men who are making decisions and women and those who do not identify, in that binary structure. If this is how we're going to continue to do this, we'll be the ones who suffer.
Alvin, here's the thing. We talk about it because we're interested and we keep up with the news and so forth. But the average American, do they really care? Do they understand what the impact of all of this could mean upon our lives?
We know that they don't. The average American does not realize the magnitude of it. We know that because of the percentage of individuals who vote for national elections and do not vote in local elections. Most of us don't understand the things that impact us most directly. We look at the things that get the most attention and we presume those decisions to be the most powerful, when in fact, the allocations and the assignments and the nominations, judges at the local level, we don't even understand what that really means for us. When we are not getting out of our beds to vote in local elections, we are choosing to be passengers in the car of our own lives day to day. So we don't really have a full understanding of what this means. And we tend not to get serious about anything until it has kitchen table impact. That's when we get upset about something. But the truth is, long before it became a kitchen table issue, we had an opportunity to be able to prevent that. But we don't, because we live our lives 5 feet in front of us, not realizing that part of the political power of various parties, we won't point to one in particular, okay, is the fact that they're making decisions thinking about 40 years from now. And too many of us are only making a decision thinking about Friday.
Dawn, let me ask you
Yes.
this question, because George Santos, Congressman George Santos,
Don't give him that honor. Please do not give him.
well, for right now,
he got it.
right there.
that
But
is
you don't
his
have
title.
to say it.
And-
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's just me.
You mean the
But-
Home Alone
but-
guy on the bench? I wrote it today.
But as an elected
ma'am.
official, what does that do to you and to elected officials overall? Because people already believe that no politician can ever tell the truth to begin with. But this is so blatant that it's just mind-boggling that it's so blatant.
It is. And I don't, when you don't know the person, go back to the behavior specialist. He has issues. And I'm hopeful that he doesn't hurt or harm.
Mhm.
That is my fear, because when a person has to do that to get to where they think they want to be, because they need the feel of power or popularity, and has not shown remorse. You can say remorse, but has not shown remorse. There's an issue with that. So I go back to my emotional disorders. Brother got problems, and we need to be careful. I think that this Congress needs to be careful. But he is not credible, because if you have to lie about who you are, then then you're not who you're saying you're going to be. And so, yes, it just perpetuates the issue that people up there, they doing for themselves. They're not doing anything for me, so I don't need to pay attention to this at all, because they're not there for me. But then when the speaker said, it's a lot of people in the House and the Senate who embellished the truth. But they need to be gone too. Yes, he said it.
Yeah, he did.
It's
And
recorded.
He said that, and he also said that he is not going to remove him, and that he will put him on a committee.
Well, he needs him. Okay, he needs
said
him for the
he
vote.
needs to go. He'll go in front
Right.
of ethics, and then just like anyone else is what
Right.
he's saying. But let me just say one more thing. Going back to Byron Donalds.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that. Go ahead.
Let me just talk about him. He's the elected Herschel Walker to me. Okay, I'm just going to say it. But, I watched him on an interview justifying privatizing Social Security.
With Joy Reid.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I saw that.
It was
saw that too.
unbelievable. And so, to Alvean's point, that particular party looks 40 years ahead. And when you look at the kitchen table, you look at 5 days ahead, right? And then you don't get upset till after it's already happened. This is why we advocated to have local elections moved to November. So you have no choice but to put it all together. Now, you had your local elected officials that wanted to keep it in May, and they were upset. And they would say, well, the issues would
So
be...
back before this year in Virginia, local elections were held in May. National elections in November.
And now
Okay, make sure people
now
know.
it's together. It's
Right.
November. The local
Everything is in
is
November.
all in November. So we don't have people get tired of voting, basically. So what I'm saying with that is, this will raise the issues on a different levels on how it's all connected together.
Let's hope. Alvin,
Let's hope.
you wanna
No,
respond?
I agree with that, because what it does is almost, it's not quite the same thing as gerrymandering, right? But when you have things separated in that kind of way, you almost ensure that only a certain group of people are really going to participate, because that group of people is well informed. Our local elections has if you look at the data around it, generationally, you have a significantly higher percentage of older or more mature voters participating in the May election. Where in November, because it gets national attention, you get a larger swath of the generations that are represented in the community participating. So if you know that to be true, we also have an understanding of, as you get older, where you're more likely to vote. So more of our older generation tends to vote more conservatively. And that is not to say it's universal. I'm just saying in terms of what the trend is, which behooves people who want to ensure a more conservative vote to keep those separate, because we're going to get more of what we want if that ends up being the case. I'm not here to judge it. I'm just saying that the system works a particular way in order to ensure particular outcomes. So if we want to make sure that we have more participation, and we don't have people have to take off of work in order to be able to vote, because that is going to change the demographic of the people who participate.
Which is why we have a holiday now.
100%,
Voting day.
right?
In Virginia.
Election day in
Not
Virginia.
everywhere.
Right,
Yep.
not everywhere. In
But
Virginia.
when we're
Yeah.
looking at
Not
this from a
every city
national
either.
perspective, that when we put it together and we ensure that everyone has the ability to do so without consequence to their household, we will get a better representation of what America really wanted, both at the local and national level.
Gaylene, Explain. It's not every city. I thought it was as a state holiday.
No, it was up to the locality because we don't have it in Hampton.
Hampton City Government. Are you listening?
I'm sorry, we don't have it in Hampton, and we should never limit any opportunity for people to vote. Have it easy. Now, I will say this: Virginia was the 49th state in the country for voting. Now we're the 11th easiest state to vote. But every city should have the general election in November as a holiday. So what Hampton did is they made June 19th as a holiday for Juneteenth. You know, and I'm good with that too.
Vote.
You can have June.
Yeah,
you can
well, I was
vote.
gonna say, why can't we?
Why can't vote? But you know, they have their excuses or whatever. But we're still advocating for it.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I thought every city. I thought
Not
because it was statewide.
You have the option, and that's how you get things passed. It was given as an option.
There's always
you got to give and take in everything that you do. But then and I might be changing topics.
No, that's okay.
But in this last special election that we had,
I was just getting ready to go there.
We
so
had
thank
the
you.
largest turnout in a special election.
Yes,
which was good. Virginia Beach and Norfolk, and so. Of course, I was pleased with the outcome, but I'm hopeful that the majority of citizens will be pleased with the work of our new senator.
Yes.
But I was pleased. One, that it was so close, so that meant that it was working.
Yeah.
And it can work.
And in case you're unaware, Daun is
I'm
talking
sorry.
about the election between Aaron Rouse and Kevin Adams. And Aaron Rouse was elected to the Virginia State Senate. And yesterday, on the floor, they already came up with the right
15-week.
to restrict abortion has been introduced.
Yes.
Is it going to pass, ladies?
Well, let me just say this: the reason why Senator Aaron Rouse won is because when he knocked on the doors, women's reproductive rights was number one. Care what political party you are on.
Right.
He won by 409 votes, and that was under the 1 percentile, and his opponent could have done a recount.
Well,
He didn't do a
conceded.
recount
That's right.
because he knew it was no reason for him to do a recount. Will these bills pass? Because it's got to go through the Senate. The Senate is our brick wall right now.
Isn't it interesting in both Virginia and in the nation and nationally?
It's our brick wall. I mean, there is a Democratic Senator, Joe Morrissey, who is pro-life and has always been on that line of siding with the Republicans. But now that you have Aaron Rouse in there, women's reproductive rights will be protected. So it will have to come from the House and go to the Senate. The Senate is our brick wall, just like it was in the last session.
Yeah, it won't even get out of committees.
Won't even get out
You
the
don't
committee.
think it'll come out of committee?
No.
Okay.
It won't come to
No,
the
it
floor.
doesn't need to come to the floor.
Because they want to get reelected. Look, realize in November, every House and seat, all 140 seats are up.
Right.
That is true. That is a good point.
And
the new
districts are going to be
districts.
different.
And the new
Yeah.
districts.
Districts are going to be different. They're going to be tighter. So it's going to be exciting to watch.
So I want to get to this other topic before we run out of time. What is going on in Portsmouth, y'all?
Y'all close to the Portsmouth.
Now, wait a minute. We are not going to let that tunnel be a dividing line. This is all Hampton
I
Road.
don't vote it. Look, I don't vote in Portsmouth.
I'm not so much worried about individuals. I'm
Right.
talking about the whole process and the whole system. It just feels like what is happening to leadership in that city, because every time you turn around, somebody's out.
Well,
Dawn.
okay, so we had people who were elected to city council that all of us, when we're elected, we come with our own agenda. And we want to make those things happen. And if an elected official does not take the time to learn their role and responsibilities, what's the city manager's job and what is my job as the elected to lead where the city goes, those agendas collide. And we had a collision of new people elected and people who had, in my opinion, based on what I've read, vendettas against the manager. And that's how that trickled and went from one city manager to another city manager. And I'm hoping now, because there was an election, 2 new people elected to the council.
Mm-hmm.
That gives you another majority. And that is why now we have the change. With cause, they say, we'll see if there's ever a lawsuit, that maybe now we can stabilize Portsmouth for a little while. I hope that they do a national search for a city manager that has had city manager experience, because it does make a difference. Because I even see it in my city. Because we have had city managers who have not come with other city manager experiences, and you can tell the difference in the staffing. And so I want Portsmouth to be successful. They have so much good in the city.
Absolutely.
Not only the people, but the commerce and the opportunities that exist. And so I'm just hoping that for the next couple of years that they can right-size themselves, build the support of the community. And
that's the other thing I'm concerned about, is just the support of the community, and what voters in Portsmouth must be thinking and wondering.
But you saw the voters come out, because that's why you have a change.
Yeah.
So there was a large coalition, black, white, brown, and everybody, different religions and everything came together because they said, we can't keep having this. Yeah. And so that's how you get it. And then you have to keep it.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left. No, that was good. We only have a few minutes left. Dr. Martin Luther King Day is celebrated on Monday. His birthday is Sunday. Is the dream still alive, Alvean?
I think that it's one that we hope is still alive. You know, the notion of the content of one's character, right? That in order to be able to even realize that, we actually have to see each other as human. And I think that there are 2 major things that have profoundly impacted our ability to do so. One, we have let politics completely destroy the way that we have seen each other. And we have watched this happen over the last 8 years or so. And when you can use something as much as a box that you check, how you identify, as a reason to decide whether or not someone is your neighbor. Are you my brother anymore when we talk about being our brother's keeper? But somehow you're not that because you don't identify the way I identify. We're in trouble if that becomes our new normal, right? So we don't really get to look at character if I can't even see you as a person because we disagree on our political identification. And then COVID, spending 2 years very separate from one another actually delays and retards our ability to do people well. We have watched social media change how we orient. We are texting as opposed to calling each other, are Zooming as opposed to seeing each other face to face. All of those things change human dynamics. And when we stop seeing each other and our ability to see ourselves in one another, then what happened with that 6-year-old? That is not going to be the first, the middle, or even close to the last. Because when I don't see you as a person, the value of your life doesn't matter because you're just like the first-person shooter game. You're just like the technology. You're just like, I don't see you as a person. So I want to believe that it's still alive. The seed of that is still alive. I just question whether or not we're effectively watering it anymore.
Okay. 4 minutes. So you get a minute each.
It's still alive. We have to keep it alive. And we can't let it go. And I need to get this in. Hakeem Jeffries and our new ABCs. Did you hear the brother run it down? If you didn't, pull it back up. Because to me, that's where we are in the world. And you can see how we can try to move forward.
Okay, Gaylene?
It is our responsibility to keep the dream alive and to make sure that we move it forward for this next generation and support this next generation. To continue to have hope and that's what it is. My New Year's resolution is to be intentional on everything I do. Is to be intentional.
Carol.
Well, mine is to be more proactive at Norfolk State and to hope to generate more enthusiasm in the political science department. We have kind of missed the ball in some respects. So I'm hoping that we will rejuvenate, come into the new year, put our feet on the ground and do the bottom up work.
Do your students talk about Dr. King? Do they talk about the
Oh,
dream?
yeah.
Do they know what that's about?
They say it looks like we have done a back step and we're back where we started. And one young man who said that to me, I said, no, we can't be back where we started. He said, Ms. Pretlow, check the data. We are back when we have to plead for people to get out to the polls, when we have to plead for people to give our voices attention, and they are focused on race rather than on specific programs, then we're back where we started. They shouldn't be focusing on race. They should be focusing on housing, education, safety and security, and all the diverse concentrations there are, and we're not doing it.
Well, are you guys doing anything special for Martin Luther King Day? Yes, Gaylene, please tell us about your event.
So
How'd you like that little segue?
I'm having a Martin Luther King Community Health and Wellness Career and Business Fair this Friday and Saturday, the 13th and 14th, from 10 to 3 at the Hampton Roads Convention Center. And we have someone coming in from the Biden administration, from Health and Human Services, Melissa Hurd. But we also have on Friday, for small businesses, we have the state coming in to talk about access to capital and doing certifications. It will be free health screenings both days. If you want a job, it'll be a career fair, and you can get a physical on site. You can get mammograms on site.
Wow.
We have all kinds of information on cancer. We're doing a cancer survivors fashion show on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And we're also, I got to bring you in. And also we have the Newport News Katherine Johnson Elementary School drumline coming in.
Oh, stop.
And then we have EVMS coming in with the Alzheimer Dementia Ahead Study program that we all need to know about too. It's going to be a lot, and we got a glam session where you can get a massage, get your face made up.
Tell us again where it is.
It's at the Hampton Roads Convention Center in Hampton. It is the January 13th and 14th from 10 to 3. You can go to celebratehealthcare.net. celebratehealthcare.net or Celebrate Healthcare on Facebook, and my number is 757-287-0277. Come on out, and it's free.
Intentional.
Yes.
Intentional. Absolutely. Roundtable, as always. Thank you, ladies. I just love talking with you all and getting your perspective on things. And thank you, audience, for spending your lunch hour with us here at Another View. Now, you can share this show with a loved one or a friend by going to anotherviewradio.org and downloading the podcast, and sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming programs. We're up to almost 300 now. Remember, we lost our database and we had to start over. So come on, y'all, sign up. Next week on Another View, it's Another View on Health with cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. And this conversation is going to be so interesting because we're going to be talking about over-medicating our children, particularly those that are diagnosed with ADHD and things of that sort. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer. And Dr. Barry Graham, well, he would have answered the phones, but guess what? We had a good old conversation today. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Stay safe, be well, and join us again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.